Hello, dear human, and welcome to the Light Bearers Library. In today's journal entry, I want to talk about a strategy that we can use to deal with our biggest anxieties and worries and fears about the big topics in the world that are going on. And because I think this can really wear us down and make us feel really small. It can make us feel like, what's the point of living? It can make us feel really anxious about the world. So this is kind of one of my strategies that I've used that's been really helpful and freeing in my life. So the strategy would be, to assume that everyone is lying. Okay? So pretend that everyone is lying to you. And what are they lying about? They're lying about everything. Okay? So this is how we're going to kind of look at it. And it's like, what should we do about this? Well, I think the first thing is to sort of start building trust within ourselves, building trust within our perception functions. I often talk about these cognitive functions. These are Carl Jung's cognitive functions. So we have ways of seeing the world. We have intuition. And we have sensing. Our sensing, we're bringing in information through our intuition. We get those gut instincts about someone not feeling right or whatever. So we need to build trust in our intuitions and our senses. And then we need to build trust in our thinking, our ability to think, our ability to ask questions, to think through an argument. And then we need to trust our feelings, Not and again, some of these things can lie to us, right? Our senses can, lie to us as well, and our feelings can lie to us. But starting to build trust in those things helps us to make better decisions in our lives. And so that's kind of step number one. And so with that, we want to commit to finding out the truth of the things that we're being told in our life. Big, small, doesn't matter. Both things. And that means we're going to put in some effort, some work into finding the truth. So let's take an idea that, so there's ideas that we have and stories that we're told, perspectives that are in our lives, and we see them as normal, right? Our parents told us these things, the news, and maybe our friends and where we live. It's kind of everybody accepts that this thing that they're told is normal. Right? For example, let's just take sort of, if we have an anxiety about our health or something, and let's take the example of vitamins, right? It's kind of normal that everyone takes vitamins or supplements. And it's like, okay, that's great. That's a sort of a normal thing. And so just because something is normal doesn't mean that it's true. Just because we think that something is normal, that's called a normalcy bias. So when things are, we think they're the way they are. When we think something is normal, we just accept it as true. And but this doesn't mean that it's true, right? Because there are equally qualified experts saying the exact opposite things. So for instance, with the vitamins, if we were to look into it, we would find that there are equally qualified experts, doctors, medical doctors, and, researchers or whatever, saying that, oh yes, vitamin supplements are very good for you. You should take these ones and whatever. And then there are equally qualified medical doctors, researchers saying, ooh, you know, our bodies weren't meant to take in these high doses of these vitamins. We should actually be getting the vitamins from whole foods. And that's how our bodies as humans are meant to take these in. It's like, okay, that's interesting. Or they're saying these ones say you shouldn't, these ones say you should. Which one's true, right? But we've kind of got a normalcy bias about, well, vitamins are good for you, right? And so we need to kind of go looking for different opinions from good sources, from experts, you know, on and there's not like there's not always two sides, right? There's often many different ways of looking at the evidence, you know, and ways of interpreting that evidence or that data. And, you know, we need to kind of, yeah, hear those different perspectives out, no matter how uncomfortable it might make us. Because when something is not normal to us, when we're not used to hearing a certain perspective, it can make us feel really uncomfortable and feel a little nervous about looking into it. But because of our normalcy bias, we need to just allow some time and space and really get to know different stories, different perspectives about the thing that we're looking into. And asking questions, being open, being curious, right? Being courageous about looking into these things. And I think one of the biggest questions we can ask when we're looking at different perspectives and looking for truth, looking for, you know, truth versus lies, normalcy versus, you know, strange perspectives to us. I think we need to ask the question of who benefits if I believe this story or this perspective? Who benefits from me believing this? And the common, you know, what are they gaining if I choose to believe this? And some of the common responses, the common ones are, you know, money and profit. Are they making big bucks off of me believing this, right? Power and control, right? Do they gain, you know, my vote or my respect? Do they, you know, what are they gaining by it? And then, you know, and prestige. So I've kind of learned to be highly suspect of people who want me to believe something where they gain a lot of money or they gain a lot of power, and to kind of go, okay, that perspective, you know, could kind of make sense of the data, and it's a perspective that is normal to my family, normal to my community and society. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Let me go look at other perspectives where maybe the you know, an equally qualified expert has nothing to gain from that perspective, right? There maybe they're saying something that actually doesn't make them any money. So it's kind of like, well, why would they say that, right? And we can be suspicious, highly suspect of them too. It's like trying to find out what they gain by things. But this is a really good way of just trying to understand why someone would be talking about something and getting us to try and believe it. And then so you may find in the end that, you know, after all of this effort that you've put into looking at different sources, looking at different information, looking at the evidence, you may find that what you thought was the normal opinion is the right way of looking at it, is the truth. And, you know, then we can move on to finding ways of dealing with that and dealing with the anxiety. However, we may find that, you know, that what we thought was true was maybe not quite true. And so maybe it actually is, if we thought something was a really horrible thing and it was impacting us and making us feel really anxious and fearful, it might not actually be as we might not need to be so anxious about that and be so fearful about that. It might be like, oh, it kind of is relieving to our anxiety and our fear. It's like it lessens it. And so that's really, I've found to be, it's an empowering exercise, regardless of what the end outcome is. But it empowers us in that we start taking responsibility for the things that we think, the things that we believe, the things that we feel. And it kind of gets us outside of our normalcy bias to say, well, the group that I belong to thinks that this is a good thing, a good way of behaving, or a good whatever it is. And we kind of step outside of that. And that can make us feel fearful too, because it might mean that, we start believing something the group doesn't believe. And then we might have to leave that group, because it's like, I don't know why people are there's just so much fear and tension over, having to believe the right thing. And it's like, you only belong if you believe the same things as us. Okay, well, we all have different, perspectives, ways of looking at the world that, it's like, anyway. So that's kind of a way that I've learned to look into things that cause me anxiety, in whether it's to do with health or the environment or whatever it is, that the kind of, housing I live in. It just helps me to think for myself, to feel for myself, to trust my intuition in things, to trust my senses in things. And then, double checking, triple checking with, completely opposite experts. Anyway, if you've ever looked into something and found that it's different from what you thought that was normal, I would love to hear from you, or love you to reflect on that, because I know we're all introverts here and maybe it's a little scary commenting, but I would love to hear from you. If not, just give me a thumbs up if this is helpful, gave you something to think about, and please subscribe to the Light Bearers Library, where I talk about all things about being human. How do we stay human? How do we grow in our humanity? And so I'd love to have you here. Anyway, I wish you many, many blessings. Signing off for today, XOXO Kate.